All right, welcome back to episode 139 of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Troy. Hey, Troy, do you remember? Was the last episode we were so proud of ourselves? We're recording at a normal time of day, and
Yep.
sure enough, now we're back. It's going to be after midnight by the time we're done. But
Yep.
happy to be here. Happy to be talking about hockey cards. What's going on with you, man?
Not a whole lot. Just got back from practice at good old Shattuck St. Mary's, home of Sidney Crosby, I guess, where he played some youth hockey. So fun times.
I was there on, I think it was Tuesday night, and I was looking or walking around the kind of the main arena there. And they had a plaque up, and I took a picture of it and I put it in our Discord where I think there's something like 42 current NHL players that went to high
Yeah.
school there.
Yep.
What other high school in the world has 42 professional athletes in the same league at the same time? It's just nutty.
That's crazy.
And you know which one really surprised me that I did not know about was Clayton Keller.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, Shattuck St. Mary's guy. A lot to get into today. I do want to mention actually one other thing too is we started to get tagged in Instagram today. I don't know if you had a chance to see this, Troy. Of Spotify, I think every year does some sort of aggregate. What podcast did you listen to the most?
Yep.
And people were gracious enough to tag us in some of those, and it kind of blew me away on a few of them. There's a couple of people that literally listened to our show like 15,000 minutes in the past year, which is completely humbling and mind blowing. And so, anyone that took the time to kind of share that with us, I just want to say thank you for that. It makes us feel real good, of course. Puts a lot of juice in our batteries, and just knowing that we can maybe help make your day a little bit easier is, like I said, super rewarding. And thank you again to everyone that took time to do that. The Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a Patreon podcast. That means that we rely on the support of listeners like yourself to help us cover our show expenses, produce more and hopefully better hockey card content, and to fund initiatives, even in a small way, to grow the hockey card hobby. You can support us through Patreon. Join our out of $1.99 support level tier. It's $5 a month. You get access to our Hockey Cards Gong Show Discord server, chat with us and all the guys in there. Do we have any women in there?
I don't know. No one's come out and said they are, but you never know.
Yeah. All the guys in the Hockey Cards Gong Show Discord server. It's just a lot of fun. It's very easy to support us. You can go to our website, hockeycardsgongshow.com, click on the Become a Patron link at the top of the page, or go to the Patreon website directly at patreon.com and search for Hockey Cards Gong Show. There's a link to our Patreon in the show description for the podcast app you might be listening to us on, or in the YouTube description. And then finally, in our TikTok and Instagram profiles in our link tree, there's a link to our Patreon there. We have one new patron since last show. Jay Anderson Olin joined our on a 199 all the way from Sweden, Troy, where I'm pretty positive you've played hockey once.
I have played hockey once, and I stayed with Leif Holmgren, who was on the 1980 Swedish Olympic team that, fun fact, tied the USA. Didn't lose to him, but tied him, and I think Sweden got the bronze. I got to hold the bronze medal and everything. It was cool.
Oh, that is cool. Did you eat it and put it in your mouth?
No,
so
I didn't.
Cliche to do these days.
I got to hold
suppose
it.
They don't do that with the bronze, do they?
Yeah, I don't know. Bronze, probably not.
Probably not. Probably not as tasty as the gold medal. All right, Troy, you ready with the game plan?
On today's show, we begin with the almost greatest NHL player to wear number 39. Then it's off to our next installment of Rookie Deep Dive. Next is Hobby News, followed by a segment on tracking recent releases single sales. We then look at new product releases. Next, we preview some of our favorite hockey cards in the current PWCC Weekly auction. And we end the show with personal pickups. Okay, Josh, previously we looked at the greatest NHL player that wore the number that matched our episode number. We ran through all the numbers, so now we are looking at the almost greatest NHL player to wear each number from the runners up in the Hockey Writers' Greatest NHL Player to Wear Each Number article. Josh, the almost greatest NHL player to wear number 99, number 39 per the nominees in the Hockey Writers' Greatest NHL Player to Wear Each Number article, and selected by me is this guy, Josh, Logan Couture.
And he looks excited.
I was talking to you, and I think I looked at the nominees, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna be a big one. But actually, Couture, he's pretty good. I didn't realize how good he was. Just
Yeah.
bonehead moving by me, but I didn't realize it. The other nominee at number 38 was Travis Green. So everyone knows why I took Logan Couture right now. Travis Green. He played for a while, just not as good as a career. And as a reminder, the greatest scorer, number 39, was Dominik Hasek. So, Josh, this is awesome. Our boy, Logan Couture, he's a center born in Guelph, Ontario. Guelph. Getting punched in the stomach.
Guelph. I don't know.
That's the analogy. And hint, this isn't the last time we're going to mention Guelph on today's show. So I'm excited about that.
All right.
So he's born in Guelph, Ontario. However, he spent most of his youth growing up in, Birr. I just want to say Burr, but Burr, I guess, near London, Ontario.
Yeah, it's a little cliche.
Yeah.
Growing up in a town called Burr in Canada, right?
Yeah, you don't know. I don't even know where London, Ontario is. I didn't look because we know Toronto, right? Minneapolis is actually farther north than Toronto is because
London is west of Toronto because I know you drive through it when you drive from Windsor to Toronto when you're going to the Sport Card Expo, which I've done twice now. So
nice.
Learned that firsthand.
Awesome. All right. Couture was selected 9th overall in the 2007 NHL entry draft by the San Jose Sharks. He has played in 927 regular season NHL games over a 14-season NHL career. Should be noted that he is still currently on the Sharks roster. However, he is on IR with a lower body injury and has not played at all in the 23-24 NHL season. Couture
he's watching the team play and is like,
thank God.
I'm not going to hurry back.
Actually, they probably need him more in the worst way. Need something. All right, Logan Couture has played his entire career at the San Jose Sharks. For his awards and accomplishments, he was named to the 2010-11 All-Rookie Team. He is a 2-time NHL All-Star Game selection. For his career, his regular season stats, he has 323 goals, 377 assists for a even 700 points. He has made the playoffs in 9 of his 14 NHL seasons, compiling 48 goals, 53 assists for 101 points in 116 NHL playoff games played. Best season of his NHL career from a point standpoint was his 2018-19 season, where Couture had 27 goals, 43 assists for 70 points in 81 games played with the Sharks. All right, our boy Logan Couture is a pure goal scorer with a natural touch around the net who can play center or wing and is very sound defensively. He has also established himself as a stellar Stanley Cup playoff performer. While Couture has been a very consistent point producer in the NHL, he has been dogged by injuries that have caused him to miss some significant time, hence him being on IR right now. He has missed time due to having surgery for a wrist injury. He has also had hand surgery. He's missed time with a broken fibula. And in his second game back from the broken fibula, he suffered an arterial bleed, which required remedial surgery. Oh, boy.
I'm no doctor, but that doesn't sound great.
Doesn't sound great at all. And again, like I said, as stated, he has not played this year. He is currently on IR with that lower body injury. Okay, for the fun, interesting facts, not a lot of them. For his nickname, I found, I got to say this right, Cluture. Like, it's his last name with clutch in the front of it. And then Juicy, which, whatever, I guess, Juicy.
You and him have the same nickname.
Yeah, me and Lizzo. During the 2015-16 playoffs, Couture led all players with 30 points. He had 10 goals, 20 assists in 24 games as the Sharks reached the Stanley Cup final. A final fun fact, during the 2018-19 NHL playoffs, Couture led all playoff players in goals with 14 and finished 3rd overall in playoff scoring with 20 points. Doing all this while only advancing to the 3rd round. So that's pretty impressive. Didn't make the final round, but he led in all players and goals. So pretty impressive. All right, Josh, his rookie card. I don't know why I put this picture in here. I didn't even get to it. His rookie card is a 2009-10 Upper Deck, number 487 Young Guns. PSA 10 has a pop of 52 with a gem rate of 44%. Last verified sale of this card I could find on eBay was on September 13th of this year for around $82 US. So have at it if you can find it.
It's like 2010s era Young Gun
I hate
tops
it.
are tiny.
Oh, I think you're about the card. I can't stand this design on the card. If you're watching on YouTube,
it's almost indistinguishable, the Young Guns branding on the card.
Yep. I actually had to look at it a couple times to make sure it said Young Guns because I just kind of my brain filtered it out.
All right, Troy.
That was a quick one.
A little bit of slim pickings.
Yeah.
A little bit of, it was a quick one, but that's all right. Got a lot to get to today. Okay, we're back, Troy. Another exciting round of Rookie Deep Dive, where we present our listeners and followers with 4 options of rookies to learn more about, and they vote on our Instagram on which player we should dig into and learn a little bit more. Before we get into today's candidates, here's a quick review of the 2023-24 rookies we've done so far. We did Matthew Nyes in episode 80, Luke Hughes 84, Devin Levi episode 125. You just saw what he got sent to the AHL today.
Sent to the AHL.
Rough. Then Matthew Coronado in episode 127, Dustin Wolf 129, Ridley Gregg in 131, Marco Rossi in episode 133, Matthew Poitras in episode 135, and then Pavel Mintyukov in 137, which would have been last week. And so that now brings us to our 4 candidates for this week's Rookie Deep Dive, Troy. We had Brock Faber, Brandt Clarke, Kevin Korchinski, and Bobby Brink. And I think I sent you the poll results, didn't I?
You did. Here we go.
Okay, here we go. I kind of figured this would be the case because I know there's a lot of hype around this guy, but Brandt Clarke sort of ran away with it with 35% of the vote, followed by Brock Faber with 28%. Kevin Korchinski and Bobby Brink each had 20%. I keep leaving Bobby Brink on there for our good friend Neil, Irish Flyers collector, because he just wants a Flyer guy to.
Well, I need a Minnetonka guy. He's from Minnetonka.
Minnetonka guy, yeah. And Minnesota connection there. Okay, so Brandt Clarke, that's our subject for this week's Rookie Deep Dive. Let's learn a little bit more about him. So the first thing we got to do is kind of acknowledge that, well, he hasn't exactly played in the NHL this year. So maybe we'll call it a prospect deep dive. Now, the weird thing, though, is his Young Guns is out because he did play in the NHL in 2022-23. So yeah, he was sent at the end of training camp back to the AHL, but getting a little ahead of ourselves there. We'll get into that in a minute. Like I said, just been a lot of hype around him. So Brandt Clarke, Troy, is 20 years old and is really in his first full professional season. He's a defenseman, but not one of these like teeny tiny offensive defensemen. He's a bigger offensive defenseman coming in at 6'2". So I'm sure that makes, in of itself, him pretty intriguing. He comes from the outskirts of Ottawa, Troy, on the Ontario side.
Right.
Now, why I said that specifically is because I was all of today years old, Troy, when I learned that by basically looking at a map that Ottawa really sits right on the border of Ontario and Quebec and is separated by the Ottawa River. So like north of the Ottawa River is Quebec and then south is Ontario, and literally smack dab in the middle of that is Ottawa. Kind of on both sides, which then makes sense why it's the Canadian capital, right? It represents both French Canada and Ontario, I guess the English-speaking Canada. I don't know how you guys refer to it, but trying to learn a little bit here. But hey, I guess the more you know, right? We need that like the more you know thing. Brandt was the 8th overall pick in the 2021 NHL entry draft, Troy, by your LA Kings. You in California, Dave, rooting for the Kings there. He was the 4th defenseman drafted in the first round. So even though the 8th pick is the 4th defenseman, that year Owen Power went number 1. Brother Luke Hughes went number 2, and then Simon Edvinsson went number 6, followed by Brandt Clarke at number 8. And if you dig into his pedigree and stat profile before he was drafted, he's been a pretty solid point producer at every level. He began his juniors career in the OHL, where he's drafted 4th overall by Barry Colts?
I always say Barry, but I'm sure I'm wrong.
Yeah, Barry Barry, something like that. During the COVID-shortened season of 2019-20, he led all rookies in the all-rookie OHL defenseman by scoring 6 goals, adding 32 assists for 38 points, and only 57 games played. He was named to the OHL's first all-rookie team following that season. When the 2020-21 season came around, It was, of course, canceled due to the pandemic. So Clark actually went over to Europe and played in Slovakia, scoring 5 goals, adding 10 assists for 15 points in 26 games in I think it's the Tipsport Liga, their professional league maybe over there. And then after being drafted by the Kings, Clark was returned to the OHL for the Colts for 2021-22 and had a pretty good year with 11 goals, 48 assists for 59 points and 55 games played. Then last year is when he was all over the map. He played 9 games in the NHL with the Kings at the start of the season, got a couple assists in those 9 games. Then he played for Canada in the World Junior under 20 World Junior Championships, had 8 points in 7 games played. Then he did a 5-game stint in the AHL before being sent back to the OHL for the final 31 games, where he kind of dominated at that point. He had 23 goals, 38 assists for 61 points in 31 games back at the Colts to finish off last season. So I think a lot of people were expecting him to compete for a spot on the Kings roster this year. He got hurt though in training camp, had to miss at it. Well, he didn't like miss completely, but I think he had a couple weeks with no contact, which really hampered his progress there. And was kind of fighting out with Jordan Spence, another promising young Kings prospect, for that third defensive pairing, and ultimately just didn't make it and got sent to the AHL, the Ontario Reign. It's kind of interesting that how far the Kings affiliate is.
Yeah, that would suck. That's why the Wild are so glad to put theirs in Iowa after I can't remember where it was before that, but it wasn't as close as Iowa, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, where they can move players back and forth pretty quickly at that point. So he's done pretty well so far this year. He's got 5 goals, 13 assists, 18 points in 17 games played in the AHL. Kind of just, again, biding his time. Maybe we'll see him back with the Kings this spring. Who knows? But if you look cumulatively at his playing history since 2019, he's scored, since he was drafted, he's scored 56 goals in 219 games with 216 points in that span. So he's been kind of a 0.25, 0.26 goals per game guy and just shy of a point per game player. So decent scoring pedigree wherever he's been. When you look at the scouting report, I found this kind of, I think, interesting. You'll find this interesting too. Quote from Ben Kerr of Last Word on Sports. And this was written right before the 2019 draft. So he says, Troy, Brandt Clarke has the potential to become a dynamic offensive defenseman going forward. He could become a franchise-changing player, as well as compete for Norris Trophy while in his prime if he reaches his ceiling. Of course, this is no guarantee. Clark needs to continue his development. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting, especially in the defensive end of the ice. Okay. However, his outstanding ability to produce offense, and hockey intelligence are all high end. Clark has some experience playing against men, so he should challenge for a spot in camp next year, but is more likely a little more time in juniors is needed. This is where I'm like, going to watch your face. His game is reminiscent of Erik Karlsson. However, this is a stylistic comparison only and not one based on skill or potential. So, like, of course, what we've learned about Karlsson, you hear that, you think, wow, they must have awesome and dynamic offensive skill set, but could be not so great on the defensive end, huh?
I always wonder with these I don't want to rip on him because he obviously did the research, but it's almost like they just hit randomize on all these like keywords and it spits out this terminology because they're all kind of at the end of the day the same. But yeah,
we're writing scouting reports. It's like you have like 50 sort of phrases that
better than I would do.
Yeah. But yeah. Brandt Clarke has a 2022-23 Young Guns. His PSA 10 is a pop of 106, 36% gem rate. So all these gem rates from last year are pretty low.
Brutal.
Last sold for $109 US on November 19th. It's down about 13% since the start of the season. And then if you want to get a raw Brandt Clarke Young Guns, they're in like the 10 to 12 US range right now. So that's Brandt Clarke currently with the Ontario Reign in the AHL.
Cool.
All right, got to make a quick mention for Gongshow partner and sponsor Slab Sharks. Thank them, of course, for their continued support of our show. A reminder that the current Slab Sharks weekly eBay auction ends tonight. There's fantastic cards each week in the auction, and this week is certainly no different. So be sure to head to slabsharks.com for a link to the auction, check out all the cards, and place your bids. And if you just happen to be a Canadian hockey cards collector, well, then we'd recommend checking out Slab Sharks for their eBay consignment services. They make your life easy and give you access to sell your cards in their very popular and growing weekly eBay auctions. You just send them your cards, you drop them off at a card show, just get them to them, and they handle all the rest. They do all the nitty gritty in listing the cards, but most importantly, Troy, they handle all the hassles. And I don't think anyone ever got into this hobby because they love dealing with selling hassles. And that stinks. And so it's nice to have somebody like Slab Sharks take care of that for you. Also, good to remember when you look through your auctions, you're going to see lots of Bedard cards. And if you might be wondering why are there so many Connor Bedard cards, because Slab Sharks through next June is offering 98% payout rates on Connor Bedard cards, which is insane. So you have a 2% fee to sell a Connor Bedard card through Slab Sharks. I'm a little worried about them when Series 2 comes out. It may
That's
be
gonna be a
the week.
lot of cards.
It's going to be a lot of cards. Yeah. It's just an amazing deal and definitely a cool way to try out their service. So for complete consignment information and get started consigning your cards with Slab Sharks today, of course, head to slabsharks.com. Hobby news. Hobby
Let's do it.
news.
Lots of hobby news.
Lots of hobby news. Yeah, could have done a whole show on hobby news, but just picked out a couple stories. Got to talk about Patty Kane, Troy, going to the Detroit Red Wings. His original 6 tour continues, with the next stop being, of course, in Detroit with the Red Wings, where he's now, Troy, covered 50% of all the original 6 teams, which is kind of cool. He played for the Blackhawks, played for the Rangers, and now, of course, the Red Wings. All 3 American, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you're looking at me like I messed up. I went into panic mode for a second there.
No, I originally read your comment or your notes, and I thought you said 4 out of 6. I'm like, who's the other team? I was like going through my head of the 6. I'm like, that's not right. But then I realized what you said as you said it. I'm like, nope, you're right.
Oh, okay. So he's agreed to, I think it's actually 2.75 million agreement with Detroit. That must be prorated at this point, though, right?
I would assume so. Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be prorated. And I saw the guy that had number 88 on Detroit is going to give it up, so Patrick Kane can wear it.
Oh, that's really nice of him. Other teams, I guess, that Kane was considering was going back to the Rangers, the Panthers, Sabres, or Maple Leafs. Now, just as a fan, is there any of those teams you would have preferred that he would have
I
gone
got to
to?
go with my Canadian team, the Maple Leafs. They're my Canadian team I follow, so I would went with them. And I say follow with air quotes.
He spurned his home city in Buffalo, though.
Yeah,
What do you think that's about?
I mean, it's cool and all, but maybe just didn't want to go back there. I'm assuming he felt Detroit was the place he could win, is what I'm assuming. I don't know. Like, yeah.
Well, all the teams are pretty good that he was considering. I think sometimes athletes feel a lot of pressure if they go back to their home city, like they're going to be constantly asked for tickets and all that sort of stuff, and they maybe just don't want to deal with it. But who knows in this case? So Kane is returning to the NHL, of course, after taking some time off to go through one of our favorite surgery, hip resurfacing, which we're going to take a second to pause and make squeamish faces.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Oh man. Yeah, not a fun thing, I would think, to go through there. He will be reuniting with former line mate, though, while he was in Chicago. He played a lot with Alex DeBrincat, so he had a good connection with him there. Biggest kind of questions for me about this, Troy, is first, how is he going to be able to skate after coming off that hip resurfacing procedure? Yeah. I did see an interview today with him and Paul Bissonnette, and he said that he thinks that he's going to skate better and that he's been dealing with so much pain. Yeah. And on that, he wasn't able to put as much weight on the right side of his, I guess, his planting or his edge work. So that in his mind, I guess he should actually be better from a skating perspective. And then looking at the team fit in Detroit, how do you look at this? Does it like solidify them in the playoffs? Does a signing like this make him or Detroit a contender by any stretch? Where do you put it.
I mean, I think it helps, but it all depends how he comes back from that injury. And I saw another interview. I don't know if it was the one with Bissonnette, but someone straight up asked him, why do you want to come back after this or have a procedure that's dubious at best, they said. And I don't know what the research is on the surgery, like if it actually works or doesn't. And Kane was just like, well, I love hockey. And that was his answer to it. So if he can come back and skate better with no pain, I mean, I don't think it will hurt him. And I wonder if they put him with the Brandt Cat or what they're going to do there, if they want to see if that magic's still around. But it'll be interesting to see.
It hasn't worked so well for Nicholas Backstrom.
No.
Coming back from now, every case is different, and maybe the degrees of the injury can be different too. I don't know much about the procedure. I have no stomach to even learn about it because every time I see the name, I want to throw up. So
yeah.
Well, right now the Red Wings, Troy, are 11-6-3 in the season with 25 points. They're in third place in the Atlantic Division, 3 points behind Florida, and then 6 points behind number 1 Boston. So I don't know. Maybe this will give them a little shot in the arm and help kick up some offensive production there.
We'll see.
Okay.
I hope it does. This is a very interesting case to watch.
Yeah. Pretty low risk though. A couple $1 million. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I think too, I saw that he had said that he knows he has to earn his spot in the lineup. So maybe being a little humble about it, which is a good thing too.
Yeah, he's like, I won't be on the first line or the first power play if I don't earn it.
Yeah. Patrick Kane is a 2007 Young Guns. His PSA 10 is a pop 371, 35% gem rate. Last sold for $850 on November 19th. So last sale was before the announcement that he had signed with the Red Wings. It was down per that sale about 2% in the past 3 months. It'll be interesting to see if Red Wings fans try to jump on some of his Young Guns now. Oh, there's a Blackhawks, in the Blackhawks jersey, and it's a good segue, Troy, into the kind of dumpster fire that is the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to mention is we didn't get to it last week, but kind of worth it, I think, bringing up now. Taylor Hall out for the season after undergoing or is expected to go through knee surgery. I'm not sure if he's done it yet. The former number 1 overall pick was brought to the Blackhawks this season to provide a little bit of an offensive spark. He played really well for Boston last year, and then also to add some veteran mentorship for the Blackhawks' most recent number 1 overall pick, of course, Connor Bedard, where it makes a lot of sense, right? You have a guy who was the number 1 pick himself, should kind of know sort of what Bedard would have to deal with and provide a good mentorship role there. It didn't last super long, of course, as he's been placed on injured reserve and is expected to miss the rest of the season. He injured his knee during a November 9th game against Tampa Bay. I think gave it some rest, and then last week attempted to come back, played a couple games, but I just don't think it worked, and so they shut him down. Going to have the surgery. Hall is a 2010 Young Guns. His PSA 10 is a pop of 233, 50% gem rate. Last sold for $52 on November 26th, down 20% in the past month, 47% in the past 3 months. It's just crazy that a number 1 overall pick who does have a Hart Trophy, I think he won in 2017, something like that, or was it before that? I can't exactly remember, but man, his Young Guns worth $52. PSA 10.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's pretty nuts. He won it 2017-18. Yep.
Yeah. Then there's some other Blackhawks news. You might not have heard it.
There's other news? What?
Yeah, he might have been living under a rock over the last couple days. The team has put veteran Corey Perry on waivers with the assumption that if he clears waivers, his contract will be terminated. Did that happen yet?
I have not read if it's been terminated. You'll probably get into this, but I got to believe there's going to be some other stuff that comes out after this. The NHLPA thing, they're looking at this and they're always going to defend a player, and we'll just see where it goes because why don't you get into it and then I'll talk about that.
Yeah. So Perry, like Hall, was brought in to provide a little bit of veteran leadership on a very young Blackhawks team featuring the number 1 overall pick, of course, Bedard, and maybe a little protection for him too in the lineup. I think that was the idea. We're not going to get into the rumor side of this for two reasons. Number one, this is a family show. We talked about when we went to the expo. A lot of kids
Yep.
listen, and I don't want to go there because I don't want to have like weird looks at the breakfast table tomorrow morning or something like that around a bunch of houses. And then secondly, the rumors are just rumors, and until things are confirmed, I don't know if I want to be a part of publicly kind of spreading potentially false information. What I will say though, and maybe this will kind of get into your point, is the swiftness and aggressiveness in which the Blackhawks acted. They must feel 100% that they have him dead to rights and doing
Yeah.
something very, very bad that is completely indisputable because of like what you're saying with the once the player association gets involved and tries to insert due process into stuff like this, it usually slows stuff down. But that's one thing I've noticed, Troy, is the Blackhawks have been very aggressive and very quick to act.
Yeah, it's whatever they found or whatever happened, they put a kibosh on it and say we're done. And like I was saying, you'll read the statement here from on kind of what's been announced, but I gotta believe if the NHLPA wants to fight it, they could, but Perry has to probably give them the okay. And whatever it is, if he doesn't want it to come out, I don't think the last thing you want is the PA to either file a suit or something, because guess then what's going to happen? It's all going to become public. And just because I'm a horrible Minnesotan, a lot of the sports cases go through the Minnesota federal court. So we'd actually probably see it on our news and stuff. So it's a pretty unique circumstance.
No, I didn't know that. What does
I
Alan
know
Cade?
it's NFL. A lot of the NFL stuff for sure goes through the
Oh.
Minneapolis federal court. I don't ask me about courts, but I want to say a lot of sports stuff ends up filtering through our, I don't know if it's called district court or federal court or whatever.
Circuits, right? Don't they call them circuits?
Oh,
Like
there you go. There you go.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the Blackhawks did issue a statement on their intent to terminate Perry's contract. They said after an internal investigation, the Chicago Blackhawks have determined that Corey Perry has engaged in conduct that is unacceptable and in violation of both the terms of the standard player's contract and the Blackhawks' internal policies intended to promote professional and safe work environments. As such, Corey Perry has been placed on unconditional waivers. In the event Perry clears waivers, we intend to terminate his contract effective immediately. So there's that swiftness and aggressiveness right there. Then I think yesterday, Blackhawks GM, Kyle Davidson came out and did a little bit of a press scrum or something like that. And he addressed some of the more speculative rumors about like teammates, family members, and stuff like that. And here's a quote from Davidson saying, "The situation does not involve any player or their families, and anyone that suggests otherwise is wildly inaccurate, and it's frankly disgusting." So they're trying to shut down that part of it right away.
Shut down the internet. The internet went crazy.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of funny too.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it there. Nothing concrete to this point, of course, has been revealed as to exactly what has happened. But again, it has to be something serious for the team to take such an immediate action on it.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, Troy, if it's the last time we'll see the 38-year-old Perry in an NHL uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Or if some Stanley Cup contending team will just sign him up. You never know. Corey Perry is a 2005 Young Guns. His PSA 10 is a pop of 127, 58% gem rate, less over $80. So it's, what is that? About more than 50% more value than Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. On October 16th, so way before this announcement, is already down about 47% in the past 6 months before, of course, the situation was announced, and none have sold since. So there's your Corey Perry news.
All right.
Okay, we're going to move on and talk about some single sales in the secondary market for some of the various new releases. Kind of had this idea because we've talked a lot about how new products have been coming out almost every week, left and right, and they've been stacking one on top of each other to the point where you're like shell shocked, right? You barely have time to adjust to product A being out, and product B and C and D are kind of on its heels. And so it got me thinking, it's like, well, how have some of these done? Like, are people buying cards on eBay and other secondary, My Card Post, other secondary markets, Slab Sharks auctions, whatever, PWCC, right? Cover everybody there. Or are has there been so many releases that people really can't keep up, and some of these are getting lost in the shuffle? So I went back, Troy, and looked at 4 recent releases, tried to pick some maybe, I don't know, like not quite as popular releases, and then some of the big ones to
Mm-hmm.
see kind of if there's a difference there. And kind of wanted to go in chronological order too. So we're going to start with 2022-23 SPX, which feels like it was released 6 years ago, but it was released September 27th, so it's 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Of course, it's one of the many SP sets in the yearly release calendar for Upper Deck. A lot of cool cards in this set,
Yeah.
I think, anyways. Like a lot of die cuts, mix of foiling and holograms, kind of a like a techie kind of card, not
Yeah.
quite like Synergy, but the a good SP version of a tech card. Mainly, I think, known for the lineage going back to the 90s and those
Mm-hmm.
die cuts and holograms and all that sort of things. Like I said, it isn't a 2022-23 release, of course, so it has that hobby class that hasn't done super great, and was again curious with the aggregate of new releases out there to see if
Yeah.
collectors are jumping on these cards or if it's getting lost in the shuffle. Now, before we get into the data, are you a big fan of SPX, or is this kind of what are your just general personal collecting thoughts on it?
I like it. I don't know. I'm not a fanboy by any means, but I like tech cards.
Yeah. Okay. So 2022-23 SPX debuted on September 27th at a suggested retail price of $125. Now, Troy, if you buy it today, I think you can find it for about 95 US or less. So was that down like 30%, something
Yeah.
like that? 25%? It's a little hard to tell exactly how many cards have sold since release date, because the only way to do that is to like search SXPX sales and by year. The challenge though is that Upper Deck puts SPX like retro and tribute cards and other sets like extended. So you have
Yeah.
to try to find a way to parse those out a little bit. But that being said, I would estimate that since release, there's been about 2,200 single sales on the secondary markets by using card ladder sales history and some creative querying of the database there.
Hmm.
I was able, Troy, to find 67 sales of more than the initial box price of 125 US.
Okay.
So not a lot. Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. And then using $62 US as about, half of the box price, there's 205 single cards that have sold for where you'd recoup half of your box
Okay.
price. And looking at the top 5 now selling cards, the top sale so far has been a David Urasek Obsidian RPA 101 that sold for 650 US. Number 2 is a Wyatt Johnson Spectrum RPA 101 that sold for 616 US. Then the third highest sales, an Ovi Ovechkin Red Patch Auto out of 5, sold for 611 US. Then an Owen Power RPA 101, 530, which sold on November 12th at 530 US. And then finally, the fifth highest sales on Wayne Gretzky Radiance FX Purple Die Cut Auto out of 15 that sold for 450 US on October 9th.
Of course, Gretzky's in there. I love it,
Yeah.
especially in this set. Like I don't think about like Gretzky being in this set, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but man, the ROIs are just not
Oh,
don't
they're
seem like
brutal.
they're there.
They're brutal.
I mean,
You
they're all
ain't
like
getting rich off
101
this box.
no,
Yeah.
they're all 101 patch auto. So
And
hopefully the price, yeah, you buy it because you just like the set and you want to collect it. But this is not one that you're gonna likely do well on because again, these are 101 cards
yeah, just looking at the
essentially.
autos on these cards, besides the Wyatt Johnson, the rest are stickers, right? Ovi, Power, Gretzky's a sticker. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
the Wyatt Johnson's a cut auto.
Oh, it is a cut. It is a cut auto. I didn't even see that. You're right. Interesting. All right.
I'm not sure you get on card autos with SPX though, so that
Yeah,
might be
maybe
part
not.
of the course there.
Yeah.
So the next set that came out was a bigger set, of course, and the only 2021-22 set we're going to look at, which is Premiere, so
Yeah.
really big set, right? One of the bigger releases of the year. It hit stores on October 4th. Now it is the 2021-22 hobby class, so better rookies. You've got your Cole Caulfield, Trevor Zegras, Mo Seider, Jeremy Swayman, Mason McTavish, etc. Suggested retail price at release was $250 US for a box. Now remember, this is a one-pack box. You get 6 cards, 1 guaranteed auto. Lots of collectors are really liking the acetate RPAs out of 90. I think you get 1 of those per box. And since release and doing some serious work in Card Ladder, I'm estimating, Troy, that something like 3,600, 3,700 singles have sold in the secondary market. This one is really hard because there's lots of other
Yep.
sports cards from other companies that have Premier in the name, especially soccer cards that have Premier League. So it just kind of muddles all that up, and I
Yeah.
had to get really creative there. Now, given this is a more expensive box, it's $250 at release, I wanted to see how many singles have sold publicly for equal or more
Yep.
and found 129 sales. So
Wow.
again, pretty tough where you have the probably what, hundred thousands, tens of thousands, whatever
Yeah.
boxes. You got 129 cards that have sold where you would have broken even or made money on your box with one of the 6 cards.
Well, yeah, and I just looked
Now,
up just what a box is now, and it's still, I mean, 220. It's still,
that's held its value
yeah.
better than some of the other products. Now, if you do your ROI based on pulling a card that covers at least half of the box cost, which would be 125, of course, there's been 357 cards that have sold for 125 US or greater. Top 5 sales to date for 2021-22 Premier. I should mention too that all of these top 5 sales I did verify in Terapeak.
Okay.
So, which sucks, but you got to do it, right? So you have to look everything up twice.
Yeah.
Number 1 sale is this William Eklund, Jonathan Dolan Patchtacular 101 Adidas patch, sold for $1,700 US on October 11th. Next is a couple of the Cole Caulfield RPAs out of 99. We had one sell for $1,647 US on October 15th, and then another one sold for $1,500 US on October 9th. Then the 4th highest sale, Troy, is an Ilya Sorokin commemorative mega patch out of 2 that sold for $1,066 US on October 11th. I think that this is the patch that the Islanders wore for Clark Gillies' death.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's kind of a really neat
Yeah.
card. It's out of 2. That went just again for just over 1,000. And then the 5th highest sale is another Ovechkin. The Ovechkin mega patch out of 5 sold for $1,001 US on October 11th. Might be the sickest patch you'll ever see in a mega patch card.
Yeah, it
Pretty
looks
tough to
cool.
beat that, huh?
Yeah, that's a cool patch.
So a little bit better for Premier, but again, it's like you're not buying boxes of Premier and by and large making your money back.
Yep.
So next release was on October 11th, and that was 2022-23 Allure. Now we kind of really liked Allure, and I've actually
Yep.
bought a lot of it. I think the cards are amazing. I knew too that, listen, this is not a set that cards fly up the shelves on eBay for tons of money. So I kind of knew that going in. And it was a sandwich in this. We've all the 3 releases we've gone through so far have all been in consecutive weeks. So again, lots squeezed into a very short amount of time. So here I was super interested to see if there's been any sort of sales of this on the secondary market. Of course, again, too, it does feature that 2022-23 rookie class, which isn't the best. So that probably affects it too. So since October 11th, Troy, there's been about 1,400 sales on the secondary market based on card letter sales history. Now, again, that compares to what 3,700 for Premier and about 2,200 for SPX. So quite a bit less actually for Allure. Now, when this came out, hobby boxes were about 120 US and are now selling for like 90 US or less. Somebody just posted it to our Discord today. We have a category for wax deals
Yep.
that they saw it at their LCS and they even sent a picture, $70.
Wow. I would
So this,
be all over that.
yeah, this came out on October 11th. So that's like what, 6 weeks ago, and it's already from 120 to in that case 70. That's just
Yep.
crazy. This is brutal though, Troy. So far, there's been 33 single sales on the secondary markets for $120 or more.
Wow.
That does not seem great.
Nope.
And then looking again at any card that would help you recoup at least half of the ROI in a box, so at $60 or more, there's only been 83 sales.
Mm.
If we look at the top 5 sales for Allure to date, you have a Wayne Gretzky 16-bit that sold for $1,000 even on October 31st, probably the biggest card, of course, in the
Yep.
set. Then a Connor McDavid 16-bit for $450 US on October 25th. There's an Alex Ovechkin Game Stills, which is an insert, a Golden Treasures 101, sold for $391 US on November 2nd. And then there's a tie for 4th and 5th, basically. You had a Matt Boldy 16-bit that sold for $325 on November 14th. And then a Cale Makar Purple Diamond Patch Auto out of 10, which also has his jersey number, so it's numbered 8 out of 10, that sold for $325 on October 24th. So the relatively paltry secondary market sales of Allure, does that surprise you at all, or no?
I not really. I think Allure's still trying to get its legs under it, even though we like it a lot and we think it's trending in the right way. Overall down market, lots of releases. It doesn't really surprise me that much. And I get a guess. If you'd asked me what were the top cards, we all could have guessed 16 bits are probably going to be in there a good chunk. That Makar one surprises me. Patch auto, and did you say it was jersey numbered too? It's 8 out of 10. Or is it just
only 325 though,
yeah.
So it's not like a huge amount. It is a sticker auto though. Allure's another sticker auto product, but the patch is really cool.
Yeah.
Then the last recent release I wanted to look at is another really big one. It's 2022-23 SP Authentic. What is this, one of the top 3 or 4 hockey card releases of the year typically, right? It's where we get our Future Watch autos, and which is one of the core rookies of any hockey player.
Yeah.
So big one to look at. Again, though, feel like a broken record. It is the 2022-23 hobby class, so there's that factor on the box. But you want to know something crazy? So this box on November 1st, we're still in November. It's the 29th we're recording this. Launched at 180 US was the retail price for a hobby box. I looked today, Troy. On Dave and Adams, you can get it for $135.
Wow. Holy cow.
That's a 25% decrease in less than a month since it's been out.
Holy cow. Yeah, that's rough.
Now, I don't know if this is surprising or not, but actually, of all the recent releases we've looked at, it's done the strongest, I would say, overall in the secondary market. 4,100 singles have been sold since the product was released. Again, just under a month. 328 sales, more than 180 US. So if we looked at that initial box price, and if you wanted to make your box back with the kind of the hit of your box, 328 sales there per card letter sales history. And then going at $90, which is half the box cost, there's been 701 sales, Troy.
Okay. Well, I mean, that could be expected. It's SP Authentic. It's
Future Watch autos, right?
Got the branded cards that we all love.
Pretty rookie dominated and kind of Matty Beniers dominated, looking at the top sales. So the top sales so far is a Matty Beniers flop out of 100, sold for $1,300 US on November 2nd, so day after release. Then Future Watch Auto out of $9.99, inscribed BGS 9.5. Well, that was a quick turnaround.
I was just going to say, they turned that thing around fast. Holy cow.
1,098 US on November 16th. Wow, so that sold on November 16th. The product comes out on the 1st. That must have been pulled first day. And or I wonder if it was an expo thing where they got it, they paid and had it graded at the expo, maybe.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
Because I think BGS was doing on-site grading there.
I think so.
Then the number 3 highest selling card since release date is another Matty Beniers 2012-13 retro flop, old school flop, Troy. $999 US on November 10th. And then rounding out the top 5, a couple more flops, very flop heavy top 5. A Wyatt Johnson flop out of 100, $800 US on November 13th. And then a Juraj Slavkovsky flop out of 100, $766 US. Very nice patch there.
Yeah, great patch.
On November 13th as well. Okay, so what did we learn from this? Did we learn anything, Troy?
You're not going to get rich buying boxes there. That's why I keep learning. I keep learning and I keep disregarding our own advice.
Yeah. It's like in one of our pack opening videos, I did
Didn't
the
someone say
song
you need to
from
quit or you need to find a new
oh,
hobby?
there's people do say that all the time. But you remember the movie Suicide Squad and that song that Imagine Dragons did,
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
addicted to
yeah,
pain.
yeah.
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 That's kind of
That's
what it feels
perfect.
like in opening box. You're 100% right though. If you like opening hockey boxes, your goal it's just like breaking, right? Your goal
Yeah.
should be I'm doing this to have fun and enjoyment and
Yeah.
knowing that very, very rarely will I make my money back. Like, again, looking at the specific case of Allure, 33 sales so far, 33 cards have covered their box price. That's teeny tiny
Yeah.
for a major hockey release. And then the other thing too that really stood out to me, which I wasn't expecting maybe necessarily coming into the research, is the crazy discounts we're already seeing. And that goes back into all the whole Series 2
Yeah. That has to.
effect on the market.
Those discounts, I can only assume, are going to keep coming until these
Mhm.
shops can get rid of it in anticipation for Series 2, or maybe we hit the bottom and now they're moving stuff. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, Series 2 is just this juggernaut waiting to be released on the world.
Speaking of Series 2, there's a lot of big drama right now around Series 2.
Yes.
Tricky kind of conversation here. I'm going to kind of admit on the front end.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people in the last couple days reach out to us about a situation north of the border in friendly Canada, of course, regarding Series 2 pre-sales, and then specifically, I think it's Clout and Chara, but Billy Celio calls it Cloots and Chara, and
Oh, really?
then he
I
got
always
me
thought it
all
was
panicked.
clouds.
Yeah. Clouts or Cloots, I apologize to them. I don't know. Somebody will message us and tell us which one. So, Troy, like most other retailers, they offered pre-orders for
Yeah.
2023-24 Series 2, and right away, like when we were talking about it, August or July when these came out, I can't remember now. You could have snatched up Series 2 boxes through them for something like 159 Canadian, which today
Okay.
seems like nothing,
Yep.
basically. And of course, they sold out right away, and then they raised their price just like all the online retailers in the US. And essentially, it sounds like they sold maybe too many because in the past few days, they've been emailing customers or certain customers and of all customers, but notifying them that they're going to have their pre-orders cut to some degree. Now, when we were asked to comment on this by a number of people, I wanted to see some firsthand information.
Yeah.
And thankfully, people had sent that because I don't love the idea of commenting on secondhand info because the I just want to trust that we're giving the most accurate information we can. And according to Clouts and Chara, and this is public too, I think they said this on their Facebook group that effectively they're going to receive about 40% less of the allocation of Series 2 hobby boxes that they were expecting. So they way oversold in pre-sales. And based on some terms and conditions in their pre-sale offer, they've been going through and essentially cutting people's pre-sale orders. So in one case, a guy had sent us an email from them where he had ordered 12 boxes and they said, well, now you're going to get 6.
Yeah.
And they're going to refund um, the money there too. But as you can imagine, many of these customers and to us in messages and vocally on like we've seen on Reddit and on if a lot of Facebook groups, people are pretty mad and
Hmm.
frustrated about it. And I certainly understand that and get it. I mean, Troy, if I had for once in my life made a smart decision in this hobby and bought
Yeah.
pre-sales at 150, well, what would it be 120 US a box or something like that, and then to find out 3 months later that, "Oh, remember those 10 boxes you ordered? Well, you're gonna get 5 because we oversold our pre-orders." I think I'd be pretty torqued off too. Would you be upset by that?
I'd be super upset. And I don't know if did okay, let me make sure I'm reading this right. Did Klaus and Char say they are getting 40% less boxes or only 40% of what they thought they were going to get?
I think it's 40% of what they thought they
Okay. Okay, so that's
anticipated.
even worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
Yes, I would be especially upset. I know it happens everywhere. And they always have the backup, or it's always not a backup. They always have a language in their policy that they can kind of do this. I think where it gets even more, I don't know if it's juicy or dicey, is kind of what their response was. So some additional stuff they offered, which you haven't got to yet.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So I thought long and hard about what I wanted to say about this, and particularly my thoughts towards Clout and Chara, whatever it is. And right off the bat, I'll say we have no relationship with them whatsoever. So, don't think that we're couching anything here or anything like that. We were also sent, some of the correspondence with customers, which I mentioned was helpful because then we're commenting, based on firsthand information and not secondhand info. And of course, we want to try to be objective and get out there too that I don't think either of us, our goal is to harm any hobby company. We want the hobby to be strong and have companies be strong and growing and the hobby be growing and collectors be growing. But we also have to be honest too in some of our feedback and point out where maybe things that we think companies do well and then maybe things that companies could have done differently or done better to serve their customers. And so, our goal again is to be fair. So all those preambles aside, I'm going to say that this is not a good look for Clout and Chara for sure. I think they know that. I mean, this probably isn't news
Yeah.
to them. And if I'm in their shoes, Troy, I'm feeling pretty sick about the situation, and I'm worried about reputational damage to my brand.
Yeah.
And in kind of examining all their correspondence and what they sent people, yeah, I think there's some things they did really well in the situation. And then if I was advising them other aspects of their response, I think they maybe could have handled better or done a little bit better. So I'm going to start just with my opinion, and we'll get your reaction too about things I did that I think that they did well. Right? Let's start with the positive, which I think is always a good thing to do. So they did post to their Facebook group and they sent out emails. And the first thing that they did that I appreciate is that they acknowledged how
Yeah.
disappointing this is to their customers. It seems like a no-brainer, but many times, like whether it's people in personal communication or customer or companies to their customers, when they make a mistake that has a negative impact or consequence to their customer, they kind of fail to acknowledge it and pretend
Mm-hmm.
like it didn't happen. It's like, oh, let's just pretend like it didn't happen and it'll go away. So I kudos to them for acknowledging that aspect of it. And of course, they did also have in their terms and conditions protections for them to, in this situation, to essentially be able to cut or cancel pre-orders. And so from a legality standpoint, it's probably a good thing for their business that they had that going or they're that in their favor. And it sounds like finally too that they're going to try to refund people as soon as possible, which is a good thing too. Don't dilly dally in doing refunds if you're going to go ahead and make that move. So all that being said, I think there's a number of things that they could maybe have done better in this situation. And the first thing I'll say is that um, this buyback program, and I think you mentioned that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So basically, what they're doing is
I was just say this is just not a good look.
no. They're saying, okay, if I order 10 boxes at 160 Canadian, now you're gonna get 5, but if you wanna sell us the other 5, we'll buy them for you at 210, so essentially for $50 more. But that difference, so that $50 quote unquote profit you would have in selling your pre-orders back to them, they're essentially gonna I think their wording is to add as I don't understand their point system because we're Americans and not
Yeah.
customers, but so I'm just kinda maybe take a little bit of liberty and say it's like a store credit kinda thing, and we're gonna add that to store credit. And that feels a little bit like profiteering to
Yeah.
me in the face of disappointing your customers, because if they're buying those boxes at 210 Canadian for essentially $50 more in-store credit, which as we know, the advantage to a company of doing that is that you're gonna buy stuff at retail price, so that $50 really costs them maybe 25. So they're buying boxes back from you for 25 bucks. What are pre-sales now? 400 Canadian. They're going to stand to make a lot of money off that. So
Yeah.
they're giving so they're disappointing you by delivering maybe in this example, half the product you ordered, and then they're saying, "Oh, but we'll buy them back for and give you this little bit of a rub, but then we're gonna make a whole bunch more money off these when we buy them back." To me, that's just, um, a little tone deaf. Is that
Yeah,
do
I
you agree with
don't
that?
I was looking at something about this because again, I say I ordered what 4 boxes and they're gonna send me two. They'll if I just and I'm not getting the other two, but they will refund me for those 2 boxes that if I want to do the buyback, they'll refund me
Yeah,
the money and then give me that additional $50
per
in
box.
point. Yeah, per box in points or whatever. I think they probably underestimated what people are going to think of that. I don't like it at all. Like you said, it seems like you're trying to profit off of a bad situation and at your customer's expense. Now I get it. Maybe they're thinking, well, we'll make it real easy for these people if they want to get rid of it. But also, I would want my 2 boxes and sell it for 300 or 400, whatever I could get on eBay or
Yeah.
whatever for it. So it doesn't. I don't know. I don't like I don't like it. I think it was not. I think the intention was there to do right, but I don't think it came off like that. And it seems like there's just this little gray, cloudy area where it looks like they're trying to make even more money off of this.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. It's an opportunity that was only created through disappointing your
Yeah,
customer, and then if that opportunity is executed, Clout and Chara wins more than the customer does. And shouldn't the customer win
yeah,
more here since it's only created because they were disappointed in the first place. So that's the part that I think that so many companies fail to understand that these are actually massive opportunities to
yeah,
build loyalty and not lose customers. But you do it by well, I'll get to that in a second. But
yeah,
um, my second issue is if you read kind of what they're saying, is I feel like that they are leaning on their terms and conditions, which of course legally,
yeah,
but I think any company can cancel pre-orders legally if you
yes,
just refund the money,
yep,
right? And to me, it comes down to Troy. And often in these cases, it's the letter of the law versus the
yeah,
spirit of the law. Of course, the letter of the law is there to protect you in case things go through litigation or can maybe come to that point. And of course, any good companies want to protect themselves to the best of their ability by the letter of the law.
yeah,
But the spirit of the pre-order arrangement was I, as a collector, I'm going to pay now months in advance, many months in advance, to guarantee myself to get product later, and I'm gonna give you cash flow,
yep,
right, as a way to, as a benefit to you, and you're gonna kind of lock me into that sale. And that covenant was broken,
yep,
right? And I think because of that, if I was Clouts and Chara, or if this is going to be an issue that's basically going to be dealt by other retailers too, or other retailers are going to have to deal with it, I would bite the bullet and create a big win for my customers. And again, this might be unfair to say because I don't know the inner workings of their business, but or whether they were Klaus and Chara was hosed by
yeah,
distributors or not, or whatever might have happened. They took the orders under their brand, and so
yep,
they're going to get the blowback.
yep,
And again, my interpretation of the response is yes, we're going to acknowledge the situation, we're going to apologize for the inconvenience, but we're not going to go above and beyond to make it right. We're
yep,
just going to settle for doing kind of the basics and really not much more. And if I was really that worried about my brand and reputation, I would look at this opportunity as a way to invest marketing dollars into taking a solid leadership role in the hobby and go above and beyond to make it right for the customer,
yep,
right? Instead of just like settling for the kind of the basic response. And we reference it a lot, but it's so smart, and I understand Fanatics has deep pockets, but when they had the baseball superfractor 101 multiple deals,
yeah,
they went above and beyond and were paying like 6 figures
yeah,
for some of these cards, and people like us are referencing it months later,
yeah,
right? So that tells you the amount of marketing impact and the amount of positive brand equity that because that's really a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
When you're fixing something like that is you're taking a bad situation, you're proving your customers that you're going to go above and beyond, and you're investing into making the situation right. And 100% of the time, people love you for that.
Yeah.
It's so easy and it works. It works every time. And just companies, I just don't want to do it. And I don't understand. I don't understand why.
Are you saying Clout and Chara should pay $100,000 per box? Just kidding. I know what you're
No,
saying.
no, but find a way to make people feel like, yeah, here's a crappy situation that we couldn't foresee and we're just sick about, and because of it, we're gonna go above and beyond and make you feel not just whole, but make you feel like, wow, this company really
Yeah.
cares that they disappointed the crap out of me in something I've been looking forward to for 2 years. And I took my hard earned money and I made a pre order months in advance. And now I'm not going to get it or half of what or a certain percentage of what. And I'm so sorely disappointed. And again, it's Clout and Chara is just the example here.
Yeah.
Companies do this all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just a massively missed opportunity in my eyes.
Well, yeah, I think and a lot of it is that whole buyback program. I think people just they did not like that. I mean, we got a bunch of messages on it. Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, what, you want my boxes? Yeah, you're gonna go sell them for 300, 350, 400, whatever it is." It's almost like if they wouldn't have not done that and then did some other, like, nice gesture or something. I don't know what it is. I don't have the solution. I
Yeah.
just think that piece of this puzzle was missed. Well, what's gonna happen now? What's gonna happen in a month or two when they get more if they get more allocation and start selling more boxes? How bad would that look? Like, there's something missing here where I don't understand why, unless they think they're not getting any more allocation after this initial, like they're getting no more boxes. I mean, couldn't you just tell people we're gonna once we get more in, we'll give you your additional boxes? I don't know if I saw that or maybe I totally missed it, but it's almost like they think this is it. This is all they're getting, but I don't know. Unless they go to like what's it, B2B or some other third party to try another distribution channel or go buy stuff on eBay. I don't know what the
Oh, you
next
make a
option.
great point, right? Because if somebody walks into their retail store and sees a Series 2 box on the shelf
Yeah.
and had their
Yeah.
pre-order cut, they're gonna be like, "Why is that there?"
Yeah.
Apparently, and again, we're in the US, so it's hard
Yeah.
for us to have the best context here, but apparently they're one of the biggest breakers in
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
If you had your pre-order cut and they're breaking boxes of Series 2 hobby, aren't you gonna be like, "What the heck?
Yeah. Well,
Why how come
I
I didn't
gotta
get my
believe they're
box?"
going to, right? Like,
Of
I
course,
mean,
you would think that,
yeah.
and I wanna get to the bigger picture 'cause,
Yeah.
again, there's I think that that's probably the more interesting thing here. The last thing I'll say about, like, Clout and Chara, however you feel about the situation, if you're inclined to maybe have empathy for them because, I'm not gonna, like, say that this is something they created.
Yeah.
You know, they're reacting to a situation. It's this whole Connor Bedard thing we've mentioned endlessly has been completely unpredictable, completely unprecedented, and, yeah, it's I don't think that any of this is intentional, but at the end of the day, customers vote with their wallet. So we'll see how
Yeah.
people really think about and how this affects their business if their customers stick with them or if people choose to spend their money in other places based on how they've responded. You know, based on what we've seen, there's a lot of people that are very upset, and I get it. I mean, I
Yeah.
empathize with that. If you had pre-ordered and you're not going to get the extent of what you pre-ordered, I would, like we said earlier, we would be pretty upset too, both personally. So totally empathize with people there. But the big picture is it's just astounding to me now how bungled, fumbled, how much of a disaster this whole Series 2 thing has been top to
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah.
It's like at every step of the way, it's been mishandled, misjudged, misstrategized by every layer in this hobby. In
Yeah.
what should be Troy a windfall
Yeah.
for everyone involved in the hobby. It's like it almost feels like cursed to some extent now. It's like the curse of Series 2, right? Are we gonna be
Yeah.
talking this is gonna be like the Red Sox curse like 100 years later? Because I mean, you just go again through the whole, will he be in Series 1, Series 2, the
Yeah.
confusion. around that to the pre-sales, they're sold out. Oh, tomorrow they're not. Oh, but then the next day they are. Oh, but
Yeah.
then they're not, and it goes up every other day. Now you have $300 US pre-orders of flagship boxes that are double the price of Series 1. That's never happened in the history of the hobby. You have Upper Deck machine gunning every other product out there on a weekly basis because
Yeah.
my read is they know that
Oh,
if
they
they
have
put
to.
out
They have to.
yeah, if they put out 2022 SPX after Series 2, nobody's gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Or as much as we like Allure, nobody's gonna buy it. If it doesn't have a Connor Bedard rookie in it after Series 2,
Yeah.
it's probably not gonna sell at all or well at all. And so you've flooded the market. We just went through a whole bunch of releases less than a month later that are like 25% off already
Yep.
because people aren't buying them. And now you have this whole pre-order situation where you're accepting all these pre-orders and again, it's probably not just Clout and Chara, maybe other retailers will have this issue as well. It just amazes me, Troy, how mishandled this entire thing has been. It's like where I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it's kind of watching this firsthand is the nutty thing. Like I remember when the pricing started changing and stuff, and we're like, oh boy, here we go, this is it. And then the products start dropping. And at the end of the day, like I said, I kind of when you're talking, I don't blame Upper Deck for shotgun or machine gunning every product they have to get out. I think they have to do that because, like you said, I don't know if anything sells after Series 2 comes out if it doesn't have Bedard in it. But yeah, it's been like I'll steal a note from your or steal saying from your notes where it's the theater of the absurd. It totally is. And it's
It is
like
the
just
theater of the absurd.
what will happen next? And then you have all this. It's like it might be a cursed release, I think.
I mean, would anything surprise you at this point? Literally, if
No.
anything, I think I'm like shock proof when it comes to Series 2 hobby boxes and
So you're saying
cases
the
at this
first
point.
Bedard PSA 10 is going to sell for like 50,000?
It's gonna be like, yeah,
Yeah,
figures,
that's what I
right?
thought. Ugh.
I almost think we need to like go find like Bill and Ted's Time Machine or go get an 80s DeLorean
Ooh,
and go back in time and do a giant hobby do-over at this point and have a little strategy behind this. I guess that's like where I would critique the hobby industry at large is it seems like this has been all reactionary and not
yeah,
strategic at all.
yeah. It definitely. I think it has been. And maybe I mean, it's kind of unprecedented, so maybe they didn't know. But now that you said Bill and Ted's, now I'm thinking about that. What fantastic movies. And I liked Bogus Journey more. I don't know why, but I liked Bogus Journey better.
It's hard to comment on this part of it too because it's what I think you and I probably know the least about to this point
Yeah,
in this hobby, but when you have like inside conversations and you get a little bit inside info that the fingers always tend to get pointed at distribution. Now, I
yeah,
can't figure out if that's just like the logical kind of whipping boy in this whole situation, but it does kind of beg the question. And it's something that I would just personally love to learn or figure out a little bit more for myself is the role of distribution at this point in the hobby beneficial
yeah.
to everybody?
Well,
Because
Fanatics sure as heck doesn't think so.
yeah, I just don't know what value other than making it easy for Upper Deck to sell all their product. I don't understand the value that it brings to the collector, and it seems like that it's kind of holding the hobby hostage a little bit to
Yeah,
some degree when it comes to like we've heard from card shops that they get sent thousands of dollars of products they don't order
yeah,
where the money gets automatically taken out of their checking
yep,
accounts and they didn't want it, they didn't order it, but if like, well, if you want to keep getting stuff from us, you got to
yeah,
buy $15,000 worth of this crap. It's like, what is this like the mob
yeah.
that
It's
runs
a talking
distribution
to
or
yeah
what?
talking to our LCSs. There's some weird stuff that goes on, and boy, that sure doesn't sound legal to me. But maybe I don't know what I don't know. And like you said, we have no like I do not know how the whole distribution works. I can think in my
Mhm.
head I have some idea, but then you talk to LCSs and it's like, what? Really? Well, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then from the collector perspective, I think all distribution serves is to cost us more money.
Yeah.
because it's a big old hand in the cookie jar,
Yep.
right? And I don't see a big benefit for the collector. I maybe understand for other stakeholders, but not the collector.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I think we covered it in depth as much as we could. Let us
Yeah.
know your thoughts. If you think we're crazy, if you think we're on the ball, somewhere in between, let us know your thoughts on the whole kerfuffle.
Yeah, and I'd throw that out to the Clouts and Chara people too, or
Yeah.
Clouts and Chara. Sorry if we can't even pronounce your name right. But if you think we're off in any stretch, reach out to us, and we'd be happy to chat with you guys about that too. Okay, Troy, there is some like more positive new product release news. The checklist just came out for 2023-24. The Boston Bruins 100th anniversary or centennial box set is out. The product releases next Wednesday, which is December 6th. Should be of, I would assume, great interest to Bruins fans. We're just going to go through it real quick. Won't spend a ton of time on it. But the Bruins, I don't know if you knew this, Troy, are the third NHL team to celebrate their centennial, followed by your Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, of course.
Awesome.
Pre-sales right now for this centennial box set are about $50 in the US. So in each box, you're going to get the complete 100 card base set. Pretty clean card designs.
Yeah.
I kind of like them. Features like the big logo behind the player, kind of some nice foiling with the Centennial logo for the Bruins, which I think the team did a really good job on. And then
Yeah.
I love how it's got like the player's name, of course, but then right below that, sort
Yeah.
of the years that represent their tenure with the team. So, like in the example we're showing on YouTube is Charlie McAvoy, who's played at the team since 2017 and
Yeah.
is presently still with the Bruins. So, I don't know. I like the design. Do you?
Yep. I love the design. I like the boy. If I was a Bruin fan, I'd be buying one of these boxes and then just going after all the other parallels I wanted online. But it's a really $50 for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a good deal.
Lots of cards too.
Then you get 5 parallels in the box, and some of the parallels, like there's a gold foil parallel. Here's Cam Neely.
Yeah, it's just the gold, the logo and the Centennial thing are gold. Sweet.
Yeah. And then I think the line at the bottom as
Oh
well.
yeah,
So there's
you're
one of
right.
those in each box.
Yep.
1 in 10 boxes will have an auto parallel as well. So the examples, Brad Marchand looks like sticker autos. They're not super surprised,
Yeah.
but you get those in 1 out of 10 boxes. And then there's an insert, Beantown Classics.
I
There'll
love this
be
card.
yeah,
I
it's kind
love
of a
it.
cool card. One of those in every box as well. So yeah, kind of a cool way and good on Upper Deck for helping celebrate the centennial. I'm sure it'll do well. I know that the
So if the Wild
Maple
did
Leafs.
this, like the Wild 25th, would we get a number one card for the fans?
Oh, wouldn't be a 100 card base set. I'll tell you that. It's like how
Yeah.
many relevant, like 17 cards in the base set. 15 of them are Kaprizov.
Yeah.
But okay, and then I do want to make one last thing. New product releases. A very quick note that today the 2022-23 SP Game Use checklist came out. That will also release on next Wednesday, December 6th. On Monday's show, we'll do a breakdown of that. Didn't have time to prepare for it for today's show.
Awesome.
So that is the next product coming out, 2022-23 SP Game Use.
I'm looking for redemption from SP Game Used. I didn't like last year's release, 21-22's release.
I just hope something is game used. That's my biggest problem with that set. All right, Troy. It's time for our PWCC Weekly Preview. Of course, they are a partner and sponsor of our show. Very grateful to them for their support. This PWCC Weekly auction is a monster. A
Crazy.
total monster.
Crazy.
It is a crazy. Somebody unloaded, and I mean
Yep.
unloaded, like crazy 2005 Cup cards in the auction. So I've actually heard from a few people already about this auction, and it's kind of funny. A couple of them have said that they are likely to go into financial ruins as a result because these cards maybe will never come up for sale again.
Yes,
So that's like the
there's
number one thing I want to stress right now is go to the PWCC auction and
I'll scroll
just
and
look at all
find
the hockey
someone.
cards, and it is by far it's not the I think there's been more. There's 225, which is a good number, hockey cards in this week's auction, but the amount of just like bonkers cards like stuff
Cup
that you
cards.
just don't
Tons of cup
see.
cards.
Tons of cup cards and tons of crazy ones are off the charts, and you got to see it for yourself. So
Yeah.
be sure to head to pwccmarketplace.com to check those out. I also, Troy, cannot wait. I cannot wait. I am so looking forward to doing the PWCC Weekly
Yeah.
Hockey Watch Party with
You
Jeremy
guys
this
might be on there for
Sunday.
5 hours. You might be there forever.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna have to do the whole show because I got a feeling Jeremy's going to be bidding on all these cards and basically
He's like, hold on, I got stuff to do here.
be tuned out the whole time. But again, that's on Jeremy's YouTube channel, Sports Cards Live. It starts at 8:30 Central Standard Time PM, not in the morning, 8:30 PM on Sunday. So please show up. It's going to be amazing and probably the most fun one that we've ever done.
Yeah.
So Troy, it's almost an impossible job this week to pick out our favorites as far as our favorite vintage of modern cards. But hey, that's why we get paid the big bucks, or probably no bucks is more a more accurate answer there. But we have picked out our favorite vintage of modern cards, and we're going to get into that right now with our favorite vintage cards. All right, first vintage card that I picked out, Troy. It's my fourth straight week picking a Bobby Orr card. I swear I'm not trying to do this on purpose, but I saw another one I just couldn't pass up. It's a 1972 Topps Bobby Orr card number 100 base set card. PSA 10 has a PWCC eye appeal rating, so the top 30% of all PSA 10s. I just feel like you don't see gem mint Bobby Orr playing days cards very often.
Yeah.
So kind of had a hard time passing it up. I would say too, even that this particular set might not be the most sought after of the era. It's still an amazing to see a card like this with a perfect grade. Now that being said, believe it or not, this card at a PSA 10 grade is not super rare. Actually, as it has a pop of 67, so it's not like it's 700, but
Yeah.
I would have assumed it would have been less than 67. Now, if we were talking about the OPC version of this card, the PSA 10 pop is 2.
Wow.
So very big difference there. And then getting back to the 72, 73 set design, well, again, not super loved. I don't know, Troy, in my opinion, for this particular card, it kind of works. Do you agree with that? Like, what's your overall thoughts on the 72 set design?
I think it's fine. I don't like it. I don't dislike it. It's just, it's there. It doesn't bother me. So it's kind of basic, but it's okay.
Okay. An important note, though, about vintage cards is that, and we'll kind of say this again more in a little bit too, is you never just want to buy the grade. You have to look at the card. There can be PSA 10 copies that you wouldn't think would get an 8 if you submitted them yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to examine the cards carefully. We had the example last weekend and it was actually in the PWCC a month or two before, of a Steve Yzerman OPG 1984 rookie PSA 10 that it's astonishingly bad PSA 10. Like if you would have bought this card and spent $4,000 or whatever it costs based on the grade, you'd be mortified
Yeah.
once you saw the card in hand. So you just got to take that extra step and make sure that you're buying the card and not the grade. Now, that being said, though, this particular copy does look pretty nice. So if I like my assessment of the centering, edges, corners, and surfaces, they're really, really good in what I would expect from a 10 grade. Very, very sharp looking card. One of the things too and I learned this from Jeremy, when looking at vintage cards, graders will often miss registration, right? And that's like where there's 4 plates in CMYK printing. There's this cyan, magenta, black, and yellow plates. And if those are misaligned to some degree, you might see like weird colors or fuzziness on the player photo or on some of the borders. In this card, the registration looks really, really nice, and it translates to a very crisp picture of Bobby Orr there in the card. Now, when I pick players like this, Troy, I always try to throw it into like fun facts or little known facts. And given it's the 4th week in a row for Bobby Orr, I really challenged myself a lot here with this one. And so I was thinking, well, what do I do? And I thought, well, this is something I didn't know a lot about, like the details about. I thought, let's take maybe the most iconic Bobby Orr moment in NHL history, one of the most iconic moments in NHL history, which was captured in maybe the most famous photo in NHL history, the flying Orr or flying, Bobby Orr flying through the air photo. Do you know a lot about this image and the circumstance around it, or were you just aware of it?
I do, because I remember I researched it a while ago for something. I can't remember exactly what I was doing, but
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah, I've been aware of this.
Okay, so and this is not the only photo, there's a few others, but this
Yeah.
photo in particular kind of captures him basically parallel with the
Yeah.
ground and the crossbar essentially of the net, and it captures the moment when Orr scored the Stanley Cup winning goal against the St. Louis Blues in overtime in May 10th, 1970. I think it was Mother's Day too. Like I said, he's literally parallel to the net's crossbar, like he's flying, and then you can see the Boston fans behind him starting to erupt their two in the background. And Troy, it was the Bruins' first Stanley Cup since 1940-41. That season too, Orr led the NHL with 120 points. And he actually didn't see the photo until the next morning when he's reading the newspaper.
Oh, really?
Now, Phil Esposito, another member of that team and player who led the NHL in goals that year, did say that he thinks it's the greatest picture in hockey history, not just NHL history. So, yeah, and I think there's a statue that kind of commemorates this outside of Boston's arena too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Last sale of the 1972 Topps Bobby Orr PSA 10 Pop 67 was 1,028 US on August 1st, all-time high 1,300 US from the PWCC Weekly auction in October 2021. You got a current bid, Troy?
$550.
So 550 US. All right, you got the next vintage one.
I do. I'm gonna pop it up here on screen. So I went with 1961 Topps hockey. I actually watched a video on how to say this. Jean Rattel. So I think I got that one right. So I'm pretty proud of myself for actually watching a video. It's a rookie card. It's an SGC5. So I took, and this is the second oldest hockey card, Josh, in this week's PWCC auction. So I had to stick with my I try to find older cards and with players I'm not very familiar with, and this one is dead on for that because I was not very familiar with Jean Rattel. So
It's
I
not
will
a
do
lot of vintage in this auction. It's
no,
like heavy
no
cup auction.
heavy cup auction with a lot of awesome. You know what I appreciate about the cup stuff in here? It's not all like these super unattainable guys. There's a lot of like, if you're a team guy, there's gonna be players you've probably never seen cup cards of. They're not well known or not that famous, but that's what I really appreciate about this week's auction for some of those cup cards. All right, Jean Rattel. So I'm going to do the little, take a look at the set because I don't know that much about 61 Topps hockey, and then the card, and then we'll look at the player himself. So for 1961 Topps hockey, first, there are only 3 teams featured in the set. The Bruins, the Blackhawks, and the Rangers are the only 3. The card fronts of non-coaches and non-rookies. Now, remember what I have on the screen if you're watching on YouTube is a rookie. So the card fronts for the non-coaches and non-rookies feature a player image superimposed in front of a game scene. I apologize for not pulling one of those up. They're kind of interesting looking. There's a graphic image shaped like a puck in the lower right corner containing name, position, and team. 61-62 Topps hockey has this simple white border around the edges. Backs were printed in a red border that contained images of hockey players in action. I'll kind of show that on the Jean Rattel card here that you can see. I kind of really dig that. And a circle shaped like a hockey puck in the upper left contains the card number and the player's name, position, and team extend across the top. Box inside the red border has a line of statistics from the previous year and a bilingual biography. All right, there's 66 cards in the 1961-62 Topps hockey, obviously broken up between the 3 teams that I mentioned. The Bruins are cards number 1 through 22, Blackhawks 23 through 44, and the Rangers are 45 through 65. And Josh, fun fact, the last card of the set is a checklist, which is the first time one was included in a Topps hockey set.
Oh, that's cool.
I saw there's a checklist in there's a checklist in the PWCC Weekly. I don't know what year it was, but I always find those funny or fun when they're graded. So each team is led off by its coach. So there's a coach card, and on the card has rounded edges that look like a television tube turned on its right side. And you can see that the rookie cards kind of follow that same design. So you'll see here, if you're looking on YouTube, it's kind of got this, it's like a TV set turned on its side. Each team has a picture card and 2 action cards that appear at the end of each team section. The action cards are designed to look like they're taking place on television. They were really fascinated with TVs back in the day with some of these cards. Remember, there's always with the test, the Bobby Orr test that's on a TV.
Well, it's still a novelty back then, right?
Yeah,
like
for
TV.
sure. Yep. Key rookie cards include Rod Gilbert and Jean Rattel. And that's what we're looking at right now, Jean Rattel. So this card itself, obviously, it's an SGC 5. So with that grade, there will definitely be some condition issues. Also, this is a rookie card, so it has that more basic design of a rounded edge that looks like the television tube turned on its side. Looking at the card, definitely off center from top to bottom. Pretty obvious there. Also, left to right centering is off a little bit. You can also see there's condition issues on the surface of the card. For sure, up here by where it says Rangers, there's something going on with that. Printing plate maybe didn't line up or something's going on there. And then there's a lot of you got a new word for these. I called them fish eyes. Didn't you call them something else the other day? Or is they fish eyes? Like these, like these little marks that you see on the card.
Well,
like
sometimes they're fish eyes. Like that's a fish eye, but sometimes there's like snowflakes.
Oh,
if you don't get that like circle kind of deal where it's more like dandruff is on the card or something like that.
And then over here on the right side, you can definitely see something. I don't know if it's staining, dirt. There's something going on with that. However, with that being said, the actual picture of Jean Rattel, the player, is actually really good. Looks really nice, good color. Edges and corners on this thing aren't that bad. So if you can live with the fish eyes, this thing going up here with the Rangers and some of that staining, it's actually a really nice card. But again, it's an SGC 5, so there's definitely going to be issues. Now, Josh, here's where I was mentioning earlier. If we look on the back right here, Jean Rattel from Guelph. There it is. We got it back. So I had to say that or show that piece because I just love saying Guelph. It's a favorite. And I really, like I kind of mentioned, I dig all the little hockey guys on the outside. I think it's a cool little touch. So again, cards in good shape. It's an SGC 5, but it's a nice rookie card of a great player to pick up if you don't have the budget to try to go for a higher graded copy. All right, Josh. Now we got to learn a little bit about Jean Rattel. Hall of Famer, one-time Bill Masterton winner, 2-time Lady Byng winner, one-time Ted Lindsay winner, or back then it was the Lester B. Pearson Award, named one of the greatest 100 players in NHL history by NHL.com in 2017, center who played a little over 15 seasons with the New York Rangers, finished his career playing for the Boston Bruins. For his career, at 491 goals, 776 assists for 1,267 points in 1,280 games played over a 21-season NHL career. His number 19 is retired by the New York Rangers. All right, again, SGC 5 has a pop of 3, and there are 20 graded higher with a total SGC graded population of 29. I could not find an SGC 5 sale in all my research, but I did find an SGC 4 copy that sold on May 12th of this year via eBay, verified at Terapeak, for $150 US. Current bid on this card right now is $18 US.
Cool card. Always fun to learn about people like Jean Rattel. Last vintage card we're going to talk about this week is a 1979 OPG Wayne Gretzky. Ever heard of him, Troy? He's pretty good.
It's an SGC show, I guess. What's
going on SGC 8. So a lot of times we'll actually avoid Gretzky rookies because we tend to see them a lot. But I thought this one would be interesting to look at for a couple of reasons. First, given it's in that SGC holder, I'm wondering if we'll see kind of the SGC discount we expect to see in ultra modern cards, or maybe because SGC is more known for vintage grading that maybe it'll be closer to PSA. So I was curious about that when I saw the card, and then also learned so much about this card from doing the show with Jeremy Lee that I thought it'd be fun to give our poor man's Jeremy Lee assessment maybe of this Gretzky rookie. And for anyone that's ever been interested in getting a Wayne Gretzky rookie card, I think here's the number one most important thing that I've learned, especially in the past year. The card itself is basically a hobby in of itself.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as like buying a card. And this is a card you really have to understand and do your homework and talk to people to make sure that you're getting the right one for your collection. Um, and you definitely can't buy the grade. You
Yeah.
have to buy the card. For all intents and purposes, you can kind of buy the grade with like modern Young Guns, but it just doesn't work with this card. The grade is more kind of like a I view it as like a range of price. Oh, so it's going to be in this kind of price range, but shouldn't maybe tell you what the price is in of itself. And a lot of that comes down to that there's so many of these cards for being the most valuable hockey card at what $4 million for an
Yeah.
OPG PSA 10, what it sold for. There's actually a ton of them out there. So I went and looked because I was kind of curious. I'd never done this before at the total graded copies by PSA, BGS, and SGC. So there's been 11,438 copies graded by PSA, 4,518 copies graded by BGS, and 1,071 copies by SGC. So that trays over 17,000 graded copies
Yeah.
of this card by the big three grading companies. So if you're like looking at like a PSA 8, there might be 1,200 or 2,000, and you're going to find a huge spectrum of condition in that range. And so that's just something to be very mindful of. But since we're looking specifically, of course, at an SGC 8, we'll dig into the card a little bit. Now, at SGC, the pop on an 8 is 66 because it's a lot lower overall pop.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Troy, but when I'm looking at a Gretzky rookie, first thing I look at is centering. And I would say it's in pretty decent shape for this card. It's definitely off left to right, but
Yeah.
there's lots of Gretzky rookies with horrible centering. And so if you're a centering snob, that's one of the first things that you'll want to check out. Now, with this, would you say, Troy? This is like 65-35, 70-30 centering?
65-35 maybe. I don't know.
Is this centering that you can live with in a
Oh
vintage
yeah, I
card?
could live with this. It took me. I did a double take to make sure. Like, yeah, I can definitely live with this.
And we're talking left to right centering. Top to bottom's a little bit better, I think, or
Yeah.
less noticeable, maybe just because the way the card
Yeah.
is designed. I talked about registration a little bit before, but the registration on this card is really good. This is where you can see a lot of times registration issues, and maybe if anything, the yellow plate is a little off. So if like you go and look at this card at pwccmarketplace.com, the either check out the Edmonton Oilers at the very top of the card or in the oil drop
Oh, I
at
see.
the
Yeah.
logo on the right, you'll see that the yellow is a
Yeah.
little bit off kilter there. And then you can kind of see it on the right side of the breezers for Wayne too, a little bit of a yellow glow
Yeah.
going down the right side. So some people that really bothers, other people aren't as bothered by registration. You're going to have a trade-off of any card that's
Yeah.
not perfect, right? And so it's more about, what are trade-offs that you can live with as a vintage collector. You have a little bit of the OPG rough cut because it is OPG. They were wire cut. It's not super pronounced, but kind of the biggest maybe flaw in this card. And Troy, if you zoom in on the left edge more towards the top,
Oh
you'll
yeah.
see that
I
there's
see
a
at the
little bit of a
pit.
chunk taken out of
Yeah.
kind of the edge of the card. That would probably be the most bothersome thing to me.
Yeah.
But in general, again, I'm not a professional grader. I think that card probably deserves an 8 or close to it. And so you just got to learn to really dig into these cards and look at the alignment of everything because it's a very intricate card too. I don't, you got so many like little fine lines and borders all around the card that there's a lot that can go wrong
Yeah.
essentially in the printing process. But I don't know, I think it's a pretty cool copy. Is this a copy that if you were in the market for a Gretzky rookie that you would consider?
No. It isn't. That top left thing bugs me. Everything else I think I'd live with.
You're out.
I don't even notice the breezer thing barely.
Yeah.
The oil drop I can see. That doesn't bother me at all. I get it, it's off a little bit, but that doesn't bother. But the little pit at the top left probably does it for me.
I think the absolute best advice I could give anybody who is looking at a card like this is go try to find every other SGC 8, go find PSA
Yep.
8s, BVG 8s, and see what that kind of spectrum of what you can get in that 8 grade and see how a card like this matches up with, you think it's in your opinion, a high 8 or a low 8, and then
Well, I'm guessing
that'll
it's
just
going to
help
be
you.
a really nice 8. Like I feel everything
Yeah.
else about this card is really nice. Now, this is a
Hmm.
personal preference that I don't like. Probably doesn't bother a lot of people. So maybe this is
Hmm.
the card they go for.
And when you like start to like get into comps, it becomes really hard too because there's really junky 8s and there's beautiful 8s that you're like,
Yeah.
wow, how is this not a 9? And savvy collectors will pay a premium for the best ones, and they'll seek a discount for the lower quality ones. So you have to take that kind of with a grain of salt too. But all-time high for a 1979 OPC Wayne Gretzky SGC8 is 16,200 back in August 2021.
Well,
I
yeah.
think the last sale was like 7,200 on July 14th. But and there was a PSA 8 that sold on July 9th, so that same time frame, for 15,000, but that had the superior eye appeal rating, and that was through
Yeah.
PWCC. So, yeah, there was a double the it was sold for double the SGC 8, but that was a very, very, very high-end 8, so it's a tough card to peg exactly, like, where you should comp it at. You just gotta do your research, and when in doubt, ask somebody, is what I
Yep.
would say. You got a current bid?
3,100 US.
Okay. Okay, now here's where the auction gets really interesting. It's gonna be an all cup, kinda modern picks. I'm gonna start out. Had to go with a 2015 The Cup, Connor McDavid limited logos, RPA at a 50, BGS 910. Man, you don't see cards like this every day,
Nope.
at all. And this auction has some really monster cup cards, as we mentioned. I am just a huge fan of limited logos, and if you like take away money values and I think I would take this card over a true RPA out of 99. Now, in reality, I would take the true RPA out of 99, sell it, pocket a whole bunch of money, and then buy this card,
Then buy this one.
right? But I'm just saying, like, just in for like the look and design and just appreciation of the card, I much prefer personally the limited logos.
Yeah.
Now, is that sacrilegious, Troy? Do I get kicked out of the hobby now for saying
No,
that, or what do you think?
nope. Like we've said a million times, you like what you like.
Hmm. Now, in this case, it's a two-color patch, but it's an interesting one at least. A huge plus, though, of limited logos in my mind is patches are game used.
Yeah.
If you look at the true RPA patches, those are event used. So if the provenance of the patch matters to you a lot, then that might steer you to limited logos as well. Biggest issue, though, on this particular card that I think you have to be wary of is, and just make sure you're comfortable with, is the logo or the auto. Now, it did get a 10 grade,
Mm-hmm.
but either the grader is blind or the auto is like separated or bubbled. Like, can you zoom in, Troy, for those watching?
Sure.
It's particularly on the 97
Yeah.
part of the there's something going on there with a little bit of loss of ink.
Yeah, and
Kind of more,
Mitch has told us like about autos over
yeah.
time, how they kind of do this.
Mhm. I've looked at a bunch of other copies that don't have this, so you just gotta be mindful of that there, but beyond that, though, the card condition is really good. It's a BGS 9. The lowest subgrade is a 9. You don't expect these thick cards from the cup to really ever be a 10. I think a 9 is a very acceptable grade. And I think values, Troy, on a card like this have been largely driven by the patch quality. So if you look at like the high selling card was less than a year ago in December of 2022, and it went for 45,000 US, but it was like this beautiful three-color patch. Much
Hmm.
better auto too for what that's worth. But it was a BGS 9 as well. Then another BGS 9 sold 2 months prior to that, so last September, with a two-color patch for 14,400. Right, and I think so what really drove that huge sale was the
Yeah.
beautiful three-color patch in there. Now, the last sale of a 2015-16 McDavid The Cup limited logos RPA was in the October PWCC premiere. Now, that was a BGS 9.5 with the 10 auto grade, two-color patch, sold for 31,200 US. You got a bid on this one so far?
8,000 US dollars.
I'd be really curious to see where this one ends up, but what a cool card.
Yeah,
Just
that's
love limited logos.
awesome. Awesome card.
Okay, so now you got one, and this is kind of an example of these crazy 2005 cup
Yes.
cards that are in the auction.
Yeah. So I went, like, I saw this. I was like, no way. And so I am going to try to bid on this one. Who knows what will happen? Probably get outbid. But I'm looking at 2005 Upper Deck, the Cup Patch Variations autograph, Marion Gaborik 101. Like, it's crazy. This will be the only time you see this card, probably. I'm assuming a collector is going to get it, and it's going in a collection for the rest of time, because you don't see these at all. But obviously it's a 101. Again, it's a complete homer pick by me.
But there's like 30 or 40 of these, so somebody had to have had
Yes.
this in one collection, which is just
Yep.
nutty to think about, and decided to part with them all in this week's PWCC Weekly.
Yep. Agree. And again, being Gaborik, again, Wild fans, he was, am I out of line saying he was like really our first star player? I don't think he's a superstar, but he was a dang good player for the Wild for a lot of years. So this one,
Oh yeah, until Kaprizov, he was the
yeah,
best player the Wild ever had with a
yeah,
bullet.
for sure. And looking at this card, now it's a BGS 6.5. Okay, that's the grade on the sucker, but I think it looks absolutely great. Plus, it's a 101. And I'll say this: that 6.5 grade doesn't bother me one bit, because knowing these thick cup cards, they're a mess sometimes when it comes to surface issues. And that's exactly what this is. Because you can look at the subgrades: 9.5 on centering, corners are an 8, edges are a 9, surface 5.5, and is the rule they can only go 1 point higher than the lowest grade. Is that what the rule is, I think, or something?
Yeah.
And boy, looking at this picture, I'm sure there's surface issues. I don't see them on the picture, but maybe even the card in hand. But everything else looks
Yeah,
pretty
isn't that weird
decent.
when you have like a 5 surface grade and
Yeah,
you sit and you stare at the card and you're like, I don't see it.
I don't see
Maybe
it.
it's in the
And
back too. Who
yeah, I
knows?
actually have the back here. Um, I looked at the back too, and I was like, well, I'm sure there's something. I mean, unless they were really at the wheel or sleeping at the wheel. But again, doesn't bother me one bit. I think the card looks just awesome. And it just, I got really excited seeing a Marion Gaborik 101 cup card. So again, like I said, it's something I'll be looking at. But anyone who doesn't know Gaborik, played 17 seasons in the NHL. He had a career regular season stats, 407 goals. That was way more than I thought. 408 assists, 815 points, and 1,035 games played. One-time cup winner. Played his first 8 seasons with Minnesota, then traveled around spending time with the Rangers, Blue Jackets, Kings, and Senators. And Josh, he was the first Wild player to score 5 goals in a game. I remember that because it was on every news channel for about 20 hours. Like, we were really excited about 5 goals in a game. And I think he was the first one to do it since like Fedorov or something crazy like
Have the
that.
Wild scored 5 goals in a game as a team this
I
year?
don't know. Good question. Good question. I do not know. So again, this card's a 101. Obviously, those are pretty hard to comp. I don't know what Gabby's market is. I got to believe there's a little bit of interest in Gaborik just from Minnesota Wild collectors and him being our first star. I'm going to definitely watch this one closely to see what the price goes. Current bids at 185 US dollars, which right now is pretty reasonable, but we'll see what happens once the show starts. And I get outbid by other people.
Is it crazy to say that prior to Kaprizov that this might be the nicest Wild card?
Oh, it probably is. Yeah.
And one thing we should mention too with all these crazy 2005s is you do have that little extra kind of cool novelty that it's the first year of the
Oh,
cup too.
I meant to put that in because it's always how many times do we look at Ovies and Crosby's cup cards,
Yeah.
and it's the same design, right? You see this, it's just one of those kind of iconic things. Oh, you know what? Now that I look at this, I wonder if that's the surface. See on the right hand side here? Oh, it looks like a string. There's something going on here. I wonder if that's what it is.
Oh, maybe.
I bet that's it. Boy, that sure wouldn't bother me because I just noticed it. So I didn't see. Yeah. I wonder if that's like a crack or a string or something going on there. But anyways,
What's amazing, we look at that Gretzky that has that tiny little notch, and you're like, "I'm out." But here's a card with a 5-grade surface, and you're like, "I don't know what's
It's a
wrong with it."
1-on-1, man. This and it's Gabrick. This is,
Yeah.
I'm sure this be. I think there'll be a pretty good market for this card.
So the next card, which is the last card we're going to talk about, in my mind, is
Yeah, this is
a
amazing.
entirely bananas card. Like
Yeah.
this card is hockey history. This
Yeah.
is beyond just a hockey card. It's a 2005 The Cup Gordie Howe patch auto variation, same as the Gabrick we
Yep,
just
same as
looked
a
at,
Gabrick.
but in this case, Gordie Howe. So we have a 101 Gordie Howe auto with the Mr. Hockey inscription.
Yep.
Throw in a game used multicolor patch.
And it looks faded. I love that. It just looks like it's been game used from the 50s, 60s, wherever it's from. But
okay,
awesome.
zoom in on that really quick, because this patch is where there's part of it that looks like a shag carpet, like the part on the left side.
That's so awesome.
You got all these different textures. I don't know if there's a bigger post-career Gordie. Maybe some of his limited logos.
Yeah.
I know, like Les Edwards like collects his limited logos, and those are pretty insane. But I don't know, this would rival it. The one thing about this set, and it's the same thing with Gabrick, because they are sticker autos.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. We'll have to find out from Mitch maybe at some point, like why that was the case. Maybe he already told us and we just forgot. But the auto itself is very clean. It's a nice blue pen ink, consistent press, so there's not parts that are faded or lighter. Very smooth and legible too. I already mentioned the patch. It's a little bit of the smaller patch window.
Yeah.
But for a game use, I mean, who knows like what year that patch was from?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just amazing. I think there's 5 what they call breaks, like different like where colors are sewing seams in the patch. The card is a BGS 9. They didn't get the auto graded. They should have though, because the auto
looks nice.
If this auto doesn't get a 10, then I quit. I give up. Right. I don't see how it'd be possible not to be a 10. Subgrades of the BGS 9 are centering 9.5, corners 9, edges 9, surface 8.5. So, a little bit better than the Gabrick, but this card is just amazing. I can't imagine this card's not going to go for a big number. Yeah. Of course, Gordie Howe is an icon of the game. He's on the Mount Rushmore of all players. Mr. Hockey, right? Most iconic nickname, other than maybe the great one for Gretzky. Here's some things, though, you might not know about Gordie Howe. You got to tell me how many of these you knew and if any of them are new to you. He was ambidextrous, Troy. He used to stick with the straight blade, and he would change hands in the middle of a play based on his advantage, and that really messed up defenders. Like if you read, you'd be skating down the puck right-handed, then you'd switch to left-handed to shoot the puck.
Yeah.
Just crazy. In addition to being ambidextrous, he was also dyslexic. So he was not a great student because it was difficult for him to read.
Yep.
So he had to battle with that. He's the only professional player to play with his sons on the same team as he did with Mark and Marty in 1973 with the Houston Aeros of the WHA.
Yep.
Howe was 46 years old at the time, but did go on to score 100 points that season and was named the MVP of the WHA.
Pretty good.
Just crazy. I'm assuming you knew that one too.
I can't remember. I knew he played with the Suns. I didn't know he was the only one to play with his sons. I knew the dyslexic part because he was a big advocate for that stuff when he was older and later in life.
How about this for a signing bonus, Troy?
Yeah.
When he signed his initial contract with the Red Wings, he did receive a signing bonus, a team jacket.
Thank you, Detroit. Hey, if it's one of the sadder things when you read about Gordie Howe in his career, he was very underpaid, and he was a guy that wasn't worried about money. Like not saying he didn't want to have money, but he thought, I'm playing hockey, they're paying me whatever, great. And it actually took some people to convince him, some other teammates to like, hey, you need to get what you're worth.
Yeah. This last one I think is really kind of cool. So Gordie's son, Mark, actually assisted on his dad's final NHL goal in 1980.
That's cool. I didn't know that one.
Okay, so I tried to look at some sort of comparable. This card is not sold publicly before. I'm not sure we'll ever sell again for a very
Yeah.
long time after this auction. But if you're looking at like non-playing days Gordie Howe cards that are just Gordie Howe, not him and Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux, kind of the highest sale I found was this 2009-10 Exquisite Collection Rookie Patch Flashback Jersey Auto out of 10, sold for $8,400 in June of 2022. Now, there are some other sales in there that are not paid for, so there's that whole
Yeah.
discussion again. So you got to make sure you verify in Terapeak. But I would be shocked if this card I think is already with buyer's premium at 8,400. So this card for sure I think will set the modern mark for any Gordie
Yeah.
Howe card. I don't know. I just think this was a off the charts special card.
Yeah. Current bid 7,000 US, which would put it right at 8,400, right, with 20%.
Yep, you're right. So remember, you can bid on these cards and all the other fantastic cards on the PWCC weekly auction at pwccmarketplace.com. Okay, Troy, time for personal pickups. I think we're the big L again.
I am, but I made a dent in organizing all my cards that I had scattered around my office. So I took that as my win. And it's funny because it's always kind of fun to find cards where you're like, oh, yeah, I did buy that. I forgot about that. I don't know if that's an indictment on me. Maybe I was buying too many cards, but I found a couple where I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I did get this. And it's going right to
Nice.
my case.
All right. So that's our pretty pathetic way of saying we bought nothing.
Yeah, we bought nothing.
But hope to again very, very soon. We've been busy, man. We've just been busy.
Yeah.
Okay, if you like the episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, whatever podcast app you listen to us on. And if you love the show, you want to support us, want to chat with us on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server, please consider a $5 a month donation. Join our $1.99 support level tier on Patreon. Link is on our website, hockeycardsgongshow.com, in the upper right corner, I believe, or top of the page. It's in the show description for whatever podcast app you might be listening to us on, or the YouTube description. You can go to Patreon's website directly at patreon.com and just search for Hockey Cards Gong Show, or it's in our Instagram and TikTok profiles in our link tree there. We're on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gong Show podcast is a production of Dollarbox Ventures, LLC. Have an awesome rest of your week, a great weekend. We will chat with you all on Monday.